All right, go. Handwriting is super important to our kids. Handwriting is super important to learning. You learn much better when you handwrite than when you type. So typing is not just a substitute for handwriting. And some of the reason about that is because when you handwrite, it's always slightly different. So you're getting those layers of neural connections. Remember in the PAA, they were talking about it's slightly different every time, and that actually helps those neuronal connections get stronger and more diverse. So handwriting is super important. I don't downplay the importance of handwriting. Do not drill handwriting at MoveAbout. There's not many do nots at MoveAbout. I give people autonomy of how we do it. We do not drill handwriting. We always try and make it meaningful. A bit of a discussion about meaningful and purposeful at some stage. So it's purposeful, but kids really don't give a shit that it's purposeful, right? They don't care that it's going to be important for future, blah, blah, blah. They might, but not enough, right? That's not going to drive them to be invested in it. So, and it's certainly not me. Actually, it is meaningful. It's negatively meaningful for almost every kid that has to work on it in our clinic. Does that make sense? So meaning's not, is it meaningful or isn't it? It's how meaningful is it? Because the meaning I have, so meaning is another word for what does it mean to me? What do I associate it with? What neural associations are I connecting? That's the way I sort of make that jump, right? What does it mean to me? What do I associate it with? And then the neurons are going to connect. I connect it with that meaning and its importance. And that's, yes, motivation, but also neurons fire better when something is meaningful, particularly around that learning phase. So if you get a kid to do boring handwriting and they're bored and they're doing it for you, there's not a whole lot of adaptive responses going off in the brain, right? And they might do it for you, but are they ever going to pick up a pencil outside of the clinic? Probably not, if that's all you're doing. Have we got to the comfort safety model yet? You got to feel safe, then you explore, then you take risks, then you get competence, then you get mastery. So our kids, for whatever reason, weren't able to give it a go. So whether it's they didn't feel safe, as in physically safe, or sensory safe, they were overwhelmed, or they didn't feel safe enough to give it a go, they didn't explore. So if you don't feel safe, you don't explore. Or they could feel safe, but they have such bad praxis that they're really bad at exploring. Then the next level is risks. So learning to write, you scribble up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, left, right, left, right, left, right, round, 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 round. You do these things that basically build up the building blocks for letters, right? But you explore and you get so much repetition and so much, and you're motivated by the exploring. That's why development develops and kids are actually motivated to explore and understand their environment. You know, so doing hand movements and gestures and whatever it is for a baby is meaningful. It's like all new and novel and interesting, and they're attentive to it. That's one of the reasons why I think personally, and this was the thing we've talked about before, reflexes, just practicing reflexes and patterns or just going through developmental activities is not enough for a kid that's grown up past that, because they're not interested in it the same way a baby is at that time. Doesn't have the same meaning for them or same novelty or same interest to it. So they do all this exploration, right? And then a risk is, I'm going to try and draw a letter A because my name's Daniela and A is my second letter, or it's David, I suppose. And so I know what an A looks like, right? So now it's a risk because I know if I get it wrong, it's an emotional risk. So risk isn't about being dangerous, can be, but it's not in this context. And so I do my circle, I do my line, I do my circle, I do my line, I do my circle, I do the line here, I do my circle. And eventually I do that enough times and I compare it to what I'm doing and I feel emotionally secure enough that I can compare and have it different, that then most of my sticks are to the right of my circle, right? But I'm still having to think circle and stick, or over, around, up and down, depending on I've learnt it and where I'm up to. And so at that stage, once most of my circles are to the right of my stick, then I get competence. And then I do that enough so that it always looks, but I still have to think through it. And then I do it enough times that I don't have to think about it, and that's mastery. So what we want to do is we want to make sure they're feeling safe and emotionally safe to give it a go, and motivated, and it's meaningful, and reasons to do it. And we build skill. So we want to give them a body that can do it, so that when they explore or when they take risks and try it, they're set up the best possible way. So a lot of places are drilling skill in handwriting, but the kid has no core stability. So you got to have proximal stability to get distal mobility, right? And so that's stability through your trunk, through your shoulder, through your arm, and even this part of your hand, we sometimes call that the core of the hand. So kids where that's collapsing, or where they don't have that three-dimensionality, that's going to make it hard too. And then if the kid's got a crappy grip, that's going to make it hard too. But if they've got a crappy grip, don't just teach them the right grip, because there's a reason for that crappy grip. Let's set their body up to not need that crappy grip. Or let's bulk out the things so that they can hold it without a crappy grip, without us having to make them feel bad by saying, fix your grip, fix your grip, fix your grip, or putting it, I almost never use pencil grips unless a kid loves it, because the kid almost always just does their crappy grip over the top of it. So we can talk more about handwriting more in the future, but I would say handwriting is important. Yes, we work on it. I guess the last thing I would say, when I work on handwriting, it's about getting it out of the fear bucket and into the fun bucket, starting to get some neural associations with handwriting that aren't all amygdala charged, that aren't all avoid. We want to get it from avoid to tolerate, to enjoy, to choose. We might have to build skill up around that. And so when I'm doing handwriting, it's assessment, not treatment, mostly. So I'm looking at where they're up to, seeing where that just right challenge is, where that adaptive response is. But mostly it's about making it fun. And then maybe I give some homework where someone who charges less than I do can work on that skill development with some repetition, because you do still need to practice and get repetition. But I don't think that's the best use of our time and our resources in the clinic. But let's find fun, meaningful ways to tap into that skill for that kid, and send the practice stuff home, because they don't have the resources we have.
Yeah, it was good. I guess it just has been highlighted. It's important. I know it from, it's a lot of focus in PEDS at uni, especially because a lot of the students would go on placement to schools, and whenever we would have our end of placement assessments, it was all about handwriting, and it just makes total sense what you're saying. They can't, what was that you said? Got to have proximal stability to have distal flexibility.
Distal mobility. Yep.
Mobility.
Yeah, because what happens is, if you don't have proximal stability, you find a stable grip.
Yeah.
Or a stable grip. Both of those are developmentally appropriate.
Yeah.
And both of those I would be more happy seeing a 4 or 5-year-old using than a thumb wrap. Or then this weird one where that's hyper extended that I can't even do, right? I'd rather a developmentally immature grip, which is usually finding stability because they don't have it here, than an atypical grip. Try and undo an atypical grip, good luck. So people teaching handwriting to kids people teaching mature grips to kids whose bodies aren't set up for it are doing them a real disservice. And you probably just need to look around the offices and see OTs that have bad grips and ask when they were taught to hold one.
And it's really consistent with, I have a lot of parents that say, oh, we want fine motor. And I'm like, oh, their body is so not ready. Like I just...
put it in. So we can probably talk about that. I mean, it's not that they're not ready for fine motor, but we need to work out what can they do at the just right challenge, right?
Yeah.
So, if they are holding their pencil like this, or like like this,
Mm.
what can we give them that they hold it like that? You can't do this on an egg chalk or an egg crayon. You've got to hold it like that, right? And so we're now something that they can do with what would be a mature grip for anyone with that implement, and they're there. You can't do a thumb wrap on we call it finger muscle crayon, which is just a broken bit of crayon. Never throw out broken crayon, because if it's too tiny, you've got to hold it like that. So we can start to do it, but let's not give them, a skinny pencil and be constantly harping on them to hold it with a mature grip, because probably most of us in the office slip into something that's outside. Like my thumb will slip more to the pad rather than actively stabilizing the pencil. And just,
Oh yeah, I do that.
Yeah, same.
There's one more thing I was going to say. Yeah, so it's not that we don't work on fine motor. I work on fine motor a lot with those kids, but I'm like, got to rescue Spider-Man. So to rescue Spider-Man, we have to crawl over the pillows, climb through the clouds, and rescue the goo of doom, which is therapy, and pull out the superhero crystals to unlock the cage or whatever. And so you pull out beads from therapy, right? And you're working on the core, you're working on bilat, you're working on midline. Then you have, you've woken up all those body centers too. So arousal wise, you've alerted that posture.
Yeah.
And then you're using your fingers. So as a rule in the clinic, you want to go from bottom to top across a session. We don't do handwriting and save the fun stuff as a reward. We set the body up for success and make it fun enough that it's not a chore, ideally. Sometimes it's hard work. And we've got older kids, once you get a 7, 8, 9, it's like, dude, you got to learn to write. We'll just smash this out and let's get it right. And we can still have it that, you need to get 3 out of the 6 A's touching the top and the bottom of the line in order for Spider-Man to be free in each row. All right, the next one, in order to capture the Green Goblin, in order to capture the Sandman, in order to capture the blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can be creative like that, but it's hard. It's hard to do much. And the other thing is person, environment, occupation, right? So we make it all about changing the kid. It takes a long time to fix handwriting. Yeah, it is helpful to go back and so, I will use handwriting without tears. I just will incorporate it as I'll embed it in another activity. I'll pair it up with something that they love, or I'll use added meaning through the theme that they get to choose. Or sometimes I'm like, and we're here to work on handwriting, so let's go do some work. This is why it's important. Let's get it right. And so we'll do this stuff. We'll do some work for 5 or 10 minutes and we'll send that home as homework, and we can do our last game for an activity or whatever it is. So there's different ways. It's every kid's individual. It is incredibly important to us at MoveAbout. Just practicing handwriting is almost never the way we do it at MoveAbout.